Hi, my name is Kayleen and I'm the Pilates mechanic here in the BB Garage.
And I'm Joe Weiss, Senior Sales Technician here at Balanced Body.
Today we're going to be talking about how to maintain your Cadillac Canopy. Now this also applies to a reformer trapeze combo.
Correct.
Or RTC unit as well. Okay?
That is correct.
All right, so before we get into the details, let's talk a little bit about schedule.
Okay.
Okay, so basic stuff after every client. You wipe down the vinyl, okay? Now,
And-
Joe, what do you have there?
Well, I have some BB Clean or Balanced Body Clean. This is one of the recommended products. We also do recommend mild soap and water. Either way, those two work. Anything else is a little too aggressive and it can cause problems with your vinyl cracking and splitting later on.
Yep,
So,
that's good to know.
real quick, easy, thank you. Just a little bit of a spray down. Quick wipe down. Especially in the areas where there's skin contact.
Yeah, our client's skin often has oil or lotion or sweat that leaves a little film on your vinyl. And also when you're doing things where you're hanging from any of these poles, I like to wipe those surfaces as well so that the sweat or oils don't build up on these bars.
Yeah,
Okay.
do you use BB Clean on those?
I just use water mostly. Yeah,
exactly.
mostly water.
Or
'cause
dry rag.
Super gentle. The elbow grease is the most
Yes.
important thing, right?
Especially since these tubes are stainless steel.
Okay. So
And-
it makes it super easy to clean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, let's talk about monthly maintenance.
Yes.
Okay. So this is where we need to start thinking about safety
Yes.
issues as well as some longevity type
Sure.
of things.
And the
So-
first thing we should talk about, I guess, would be springs.
Yes.
Since this unit has so many springs on it.
It does. It does.
Well,
So what are we looking for in our springs, Joe?
Well, with your trapeze springs, they're going to have clips on the ends. So I guess the first thing we should look at, and a better example would be a clip like I have here that shows some extreme wear. You can see where it starts gouging in the clip.
Yeah.
That softens or weakens the metal and it can bend or break when used. So if you start seeing extreme wear, it's probably a good time to change your springs because
Absolutely.
that's showing there's a lot of wear on there.
Yep.
Then from there, we have issues where a spring has been extended and snapped back really hard. And as you see, there's an offset in the coils right here. And when you stretch it, you'll see it expands a little wider in that spot. Well, that right there, to me, is a very big safety concern because it can break during use and somebody will get hurt.
So I think you hit on something really important here is that when you extend the springs, Joe, you don't want to just let them go
That's correct.
back to the resting spot. You always want to instruct your clients to carefully put them back in the resting
Yes,
position.
yes.
Yep.
Now, another thing you'll see, and this has also happened from springs being let go, is there's a wave in the spring right here and under here. This is a sign the spring's got some damage to it. It may not show any difference in the coil extension, but we know this right here is a weaker spot and it can break also.
Yep.
And last but not least, my favorite, this is a sign a spring was let go. Yes, this is a reformer spring, but the same thing can happen with a trapeze spring.
Absolutely. I've seen it
As
many
you
times.
see, the end here has been deformed pretty bad, where a spring was let go real fast, and it has pressed this one side in, and it's pushed this one up.
Yep.
This spring, if you have any like this on any of your equipment, reformer trapeze combinations, take it off. It's extremely dangerous, and somebody will get hurt.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. So we need to make sure to check all your trapeze springs for issues like that. And I have to say, Joe, one thing that we don't often think to check is to lift
Yes.
up your sleeves here and check the spring and the clip that you can't see normally.
Yeah,
okay?
exactly. Slide it all the way up. Get
Yep.
a good view of your coils. I know this doesn't get used a lot, but it can still get damaged.
Yep, you need to see so that you can track it over time.
That's correct.
Speaking of tracking,
Well, you know what? Glad you brought that up, Kayleen, because Balanced Body actually sells a maintenance log, which is great for all your equipment. This maintenance log gives you the ability to have weekly, quarterly checks.
Checks.
So
there's a
it's perfect.
page for every piece of equipment in your studio so that you can record what springs are on it. if you notice any deformations or noises, or if you do any retrofits or upgrades, right? So every piece of equipment, you can find it and write down what you need to track.
Yes.
So this is a great option, but you're also, you know, welcome to just use an Excel sheet or another notebook that you have around, because over the years, you're not going to remember
That's
everything.
correct.
You don't want to remember everything.
No,
Yeah.
you just want
Write
to be
it
able to
down.
refer back to a book or a tablet. No,
Yep, absolutely.
beautiful.
Okay. So I think the other thing we want to talk about is washing
Well-
some of this stuff, right?
Well, no, let's back up. Since we were talking about springs, let's talk about the eye bolt connection points.
Ah.
Eye bolt connection points can wear also. And what you'll see on an eye bolt is grooves get wore in, and the clip will rub across that, and you'll get a clicking sound when you're using it. It means that the metal's starting to wear on the eye bolt, and when that happens, it's time to change that eye bolt, because it does weaken and it can break.
Yep. It's pretty simple to change an eye bolt.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
just keep an eye out for that type of thing. Okay.
yeah.
All right. So washing your loops.
Washing your
Okay.
loops.
So on the Cadillac, we have two different kinds of things we might want to wash, right, Joe?
That's correct.
First one,
Would be your cotton loops,
Cotton
or
loops.
or you might have padded loops,
Right.
such as these.
something like this.
So what you'll do with these, you can. I prefer hand washing, mild soap, such as used on babies' clothing. It works real well. It doesn't really harm the fuzz on the inside or anything. It can be washed in the washing machine, but I don't recommend it. It gets beat around too much. You'll find the fuzzing on the fleece starts coming off, or you get little balls on the actual cotton.
So how about drying?
Well, I personally recommend hang drying it.
Okay.
I know some people will throw them in the dryer in a pillowcase. They toss around, but a lot of noise, a lot of banging. It's just easy. Wash them the night before, hang them by the morning time. They should be dry.
Awesome. Awesome. How about these wool fuzzies?
Ooh, wool fuzzies. I recommend hand washing these. Very little water if possible, little soap. They generally don't get too dirty, but I still recommend a real mild soap on them.
Yeah.
And
These
then,
are real wool.
yes,
Yeah, you gotta be
these
real
that comes
careful.
with the Cadillac. We do have synthetic fuzzies also. Same principle. You want to hand wash them. They have a nice soft feel to them. If you throw them in a washing machine, they're going to bunch up and just not fit back right over your extension straps.
Yep. All right. Okay, so I think that covers the high-level stuff. Let's get into some of the nitty-gritty Cadillac and Canopy specifics.
Oh, my favorite.
All right, so starting kind of low here, let's talk about the set screws.
Yes, so on the tower, you have 4 set screws per tube on the lower side and 1 on each corner that holds these in. Now, over time, bunch of movement, they can loosen up. And when they loosen up, what will happen is a tube can drop down, and then you'll have problems with your push-through bar or slider bars not functioning right. If it happens on the push-through bar end, what you'll see is the spacing between the side of the push-through bar will be closer on one side than the other
Yep.
because the frame is shifted.
Yep.
Uneven floors will do the same thing.
So how do you check, Joe, to see, besides what you just told us, how do you check to make sure that your canopy isn't sliding down unevenly?
Well, when the machine was originally set up, you used a cotter pin through an 1/8-inch hole to rest the tubes down on. Well, after it's all tightened up and you pull the cotter pins out, you should be able to visually see the 1/8-inch hole on all 4 corners. If you don't, you know that one of the tubes is dropped down, and what you want to do at that point is loosen that tube, slide the cotter pin back in, we'll raise it up, slide the pin in, and retighten it.
Yep, yep. And I think you mentioned a really good thing here is that most people don't actually take the cotter pins out. You only need the cotter pins for assembling or
Correct.
tuning your canopy. They should be removed at
Yes.
all other times.
Yeah, it's very important because it does have a sharp edge on it, and that sharp edge could cut
Yep.
your vinyl or one of your clients.
Yep.
And what size Allen wrench do we use?
This is a 3/16 Allen wrench. So it should come with your equipment if you're getting new equipment.
Yep.
Otherwise, you can pick one up at a hardware store.
Yeah.
Super
And-
easy.
And every one of the set screws on this machine uses that same Allen wrench.
Same side. So Joe mentioned that there are several set screws at the top of this canopy as well. We do want to mention there are 2 set screws that we don't really want to tighten.
They're the set screws on the sliding couplers.
Yep.
They're located on either end. The reason for that is when you tighten those set screws, they actually put pressure on the black bushing that's inside, that's right of the housing here, that's actually sliding on the tubes. What'll happen then is the pressure by that set screw will stop it from sliding correctly.
Yep.
And you'll find it catches halfway through or stutters as you're trying to slide it. That's a sign that that might be over tightened.
Yep. So when you loosen these wing knobs, your sliders, both of your sliders, your horizontal and your vertical slider, should slide really easily across the canopy. And they should slide pretty much all the way to each end without catching. Now, sometimes if you don't push, Joe was pushing right in the middle of the slider. So if you don't push in the middle or
do
evenly on
this.
both sides, it doesn't move. So make sure you push evenly, okay?
I found grabbing that little eye bolt in the middle is your center point. Great spot to grab a hold of.
Okay. So your vertical slider should also slide very easily.
Yes.
Okay?
Once you find your desired location, just tighten down the wing knobs.
Yep.
And you don't have to over tighten these, just a little bit of tightness. And
A little bit of pressure goes a long
And
way.
they don't go
Same
anywhere.
thing with the set screws. You do
Yeah.
not, the set screws are a very solid connection. You don't need to wrench on them so hard that you can never loosen them again.
yes, exactly.
Because you will need to loosen them at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we've talked a little bit about the sliders. There's another moving part.
Yes,
Push-through
the push-through bar.
Okay, so your push-through bar should swing freely and quietly, just like this. This machine happens to have the new sliding push-through bar, so it's really easy to adjust the height of the push-through bar, okay? And then the knob should snap right into place.
Now, what I have seen happen, though, is if when the machine was set up initially, the vertical tube rotation might have been a little bit off. So you find that the knob, the pin on the end of the knob doesn't lock into the tube real easy and you have to force it in. Should never have to force that in.
Yes.
If you find you're running into that situation, what I do recommend, put the 1/8" Allen key or cotter pin back in. With the Allen key, loosen up the set screws, slightly rotate the tube until you can pull the knob out and let it go and it drops back in, and then retighten.
My visual cue here is looking at these two eye bolts.
Correct.
And these two eye bolts should be square with the frame. If they are slightly rotated out or in, then you know you're going to have a little problem here. And this applies for machines with T-pins too, right?
Which would be this design.
Yes.
We built a lot of machines with T-pins over the years. And what I've seen happen when the vertical tubes are out of rotation, you'll see grooves start wearing on the pin in a couple spots where they're going through. A lot of noise. You'll hear a lot of squeaking. The pin is really hard to get in and out. Same kind of procedure for lining it. Now, speaking of T-pins, very important to pay attention to your T-pins. If you find that your T-pin has grooves worn in it, it's been compromised and it's time to replace it. Or the other problem you can run into is one of the little balls. There's two balls. One of the balls will pop out. If that happens, the T-pin will not stay secure in the push-through bar and could work its way out.
Yep. That's
So
a
you can
great
contact Balance Body and order a new one.
Yep, that's a great safety tip. Okay. Anything else? Push-through bar, speaking of the push-through bar, I answered my own question here. Safety strap, right? We want your safety strap to be attached up on the pole.
That's correct.
Right?
For
Not on
spring.
the eye bolt. Now, if you're just hooking, your carabiner through here, when you're not using it, it's totally fine.
Yes.
Right? But whenever you're loading the safety strap, you want to make sure that you're attached to the safety strap and to the top bar. And that's
Yes.
because the bar is stronger than the eye bolt.
That is correct.
Okay.
And if you're not using the push-through bar, it does have a Velcro strap to fold it up out of the way.
Super
it's-
convenient.
Yep,
Yep.
definitely.
All right. Okay, let me check my checklist, Joe.
Oh, one thing we should talk about when the canopy is set up, what's one thing you should pay attention to? The
My-
push-through bar end is on the end with the
Oh,
flap.
yes.
And the purpose of the flap is when you have a lower spring hooked up for push-through bar work, you want the spring to rub on the flap and not on the vinyl.
Yep. It saves your vinyl, so when you're not using the push-through bar for a bottom sprung exercise, you don't see any damage.
That's right.
That's great. Yep. Okay. I can't think of anything else, can you?
Yeah, one other thing.
Full of tidbits today, Joe.
Yeah, well, with the roll down bar, or roll back bar, or breathing bar,
I call it the roll down
Yeah.
bar. Yeah.
there's a couple acorn nuts on the bottom. I recommend making sure they're installed because there is a bit of a bolt exposed and it can scratch your client or yourself. Make sure the eye bolts are also lined up straight. If they do turn, you might just need to rotate it a little bit to lock it in place and put the acorn nut back on.
That's a great tip.
Yeah, and this can be wiped down with BB Clean or just soap and water.
Yep. Wiping this regularly is really important so that nothing builds up, because once a layer of gunk builds up, it's really hard to get it off without also taking the finish off of
That's
the
correct.
wood.
And that goes along with the finish on the wood frame.
Yes. Okay. All right.
I think we got it.
Okay. You don't have anything else for me?
No, not today.
All right. So if you need more videos like this one, you can check them out at pilates.com/bbgarage. We'll see you there.